Welcome everyone to another review. More than 2 years ago we had a look at Atlantis The Lost Tales on this channel, which is a fantastic adventure game that you should play for yourself. And now it is high time to dive deep into its sequel, which I'm not very familiar with. In the late 90s I played a demo of it, which was kinda confusing. It did not manage to convince me, and so I kinda moved on from Atlantis and adventure games in general. But now, decades later, the whole franchise popped back into my head, and we still have some unfinished business to do in the city that once was. So here we go again. For a short recap, in the first part we controlled Seth, a member of the Royal Guard who uncovered a conspiracy in Atlantis. In the end, he defeated an ancient evil and escaped while a volcano sunk in the city. Now, how do you make a sequel out of that? The answer? You don't. The game begins without any relation to its predecessor. This time we play the young lad 10, who finds himself in an ice world with no memories. Not far from here, we find one of the flying ships from Atlantis, which are kinda the trademark of this series. There is an elder on site who will soon send us on a journey through the whole world to unite light and darkness once again. If the first part was like a movie, we are dealing now with a TV show. There are a total of 3 main places to visit: Ireland, Central America and China. We do not travel by ship but transport our spirit into another body. In each of these realms there seems to be a problem, which is related to the twinkling star in the sky. The stories are self-contained and do not relate to each other. This includes helping the dying Aztecs to defeat their enemies, curing our fellow monk brothers from a disease in Ireland, and finally driving out a shadow in China. By traveling to the different worlds, however, the actual story about 10 recedes into the background and only really gains momentum toward the end. But the side stories are quite entertaining, particularly because of the great voice actors.
The feathered serpent sleeps. He has no more chulel to give us. We must turn to a stronger god. Powerful is Tezcatlipoca. Bloody his reign.
Due to the episodic format, the locations and people you visit can feel very random at times. There are all different kinds of themes thrown into this title, and not everything was appealing to me. The overall atmosphere feels a bit more peaceful now than in its debut. This may also be since you can't die here, and thank God for that. I'm not a fan of dying in adventure games and like to take my time for solving puzzles and explore the area. But this does not mean that love, peace and harmony reign here. Even if the game is approved for ages 12 and up, some scenes can be quite disturbing when you see the monster's head chopped off or the chieftain performs a blood ritual. It's even more blatant in Ireland, which is actually the coziest world of the bunch and my personal favorite. There, you have to revive an old king by assembling his skull. Back from the dead, he tells you about the goddess Ain, who has cursed the whole island apparently out of jealousy. At first, I thought that the king had probably gone astray and thus aroused the wrath of the goddess. But when you later talk to her in person to lift the curse, you learn the whole truth. The king raped her, after which she had his body smashed. That's pretty dark stuff for an adventure game, hats off. Further into China, there's also a quite memorable scene when you descend into the depths of hell. Don't worry, it's not like what you think. Your task is to get the mushroom of immortality for an old master. He already has eaten one, but his life was only extended by 500 years. 250 years later, it is high time for another one. So we go into hell to look for the mushroom and are greeted by a minotaur. We only get the mushroom if we have a special form stamped. The whole sequence reminded me of the legendary scene from Asterix and Obelix when they tried to get hold of the permit A38. Hell is presented here as a total bureaucratic madness, and some of the representatives are even glued to the ceiling. This isn't necessarily the most difficult riddle, but it made me chuckle, especially because of the ending. After you have helped out the three worlds, the main story actually continues and you encounter an old friend in some kind of dream world, Queen Rhea of Atlantis. By talking to her, she throws the whole story at you, which isn't easy to digest. As it turns out, we are an emissary of Seth, the main hero of the first game. I have always wondered why our character has the same voice actor as him. That's not all. We are the last guardian of light. After the destruction of Atlantis, light and darkness were put to sleep, but now they have to be reunited so that the world doesn't get out of joint. So let's just do that by hitting the floating tumor from Atlantis 1 once more in the face, or rather its tentacles, while making an underwater dive through the lost city itself. Afterwards, we float through the stars and reunite with our pregnant wife. Wait, what? If it wasn't for the scene with Rhea trying to somehow connect the story of the first game with its sequel, I would have never assumed to play an Atlantis game. Maybe they should have just renamed it to something else. Overall, the smaller stories inside the larger one were much more enjoyable in my opinion.
It appears correct.
Good. May I have the mushroom now, please?
Yes. There's no call to be rude, you know. A little patience and consideration isn't too much to ask, is it?
No, of course not.
Here.
Atlantis 2 plays identically to its predecessor. Once again, you navigate the world with only your mouse. However, the controls are a double-edged sword. Credits for the mouse looking. It feels very smooth, like wiping your ass with tissue paper. They probably applied some kind of mouse filtering effect, but I find it very pleasant here and it makes looking around less jerky. But the movement could have been better. Even with no obstacle in your way, it is not possible sometimes to go straight ahead, and so you have to make a detour. On times like these, I wish this game has full 3D controls, but maybe this is stuff for a remake. This game also commits a mortal sin by having the left mouse button mapped to the skip cutscene key. There were numerous occasions where I pressed that button multiple times in a row to solve a riddle, which accidentally skipped the cutscene and transported me to a completely new location. Redundant to say that I was very confused afterwards. The puzzles in this game have become also very challenging. Where I only had to look in a walkthrough once in a while for the first part, this one is much more challenging. Many of the riddles are presented in a very cryptic way, so that you are often left alone in the rain. I recommend checking out GameBoomers.com, which provides a guide through Atlantis 2 and helped me out many times. In the Aztec world, for example, you have to navigate a character through a game board and collect colors to assemble a bridge. However, it is not easy to differentiate the past from the background. It takes a lot of trial and error to get the solution right. The icing on the cake is that the fields can not only be repositioned, but also rotated, which only makes things unnecessarily complicated. Incidentally, Central America is also my hate world in this game. It's unnecessarily large, numerous locations have no gameplay value. Later, you even enter a special jungle. Navigating through it on foot or in a boat is just confusing and you keep running in circles. At one point, you have to look for stars lying on the ground, but the area is like a maze and the stars are not easy to see. The other two worlds, Ireland and China, are a bit more compact and I liked them much better. The latter is actually the smallest and offers also the easiest puzzles in my opinion, but that's not to be taken as a criticism. I wish the whole game was more like China. I don't mind if you have to do some brain jogging, but a lot of things are thrown at you without any explanation. One mechanic that I'm also not a fan of is your crystal. This must be charged at certain locations in order to make the last big journey in the end. The thing is, without a proper guide, this proves to be an impossibility. The spots feel very random and you need a lot of luck finding them by yourself. One of the places to charge this thing up is located in China, where you have to enter a miniature world. However, the entrance is invisible and only reveals itself after you have previously undertaken a turtle migration as part of a puzzle. But when you decide to leave the miniature world, you can never go back. At least I haven't found a way. Even the old man who helped me to enter it in the first place no longer wanted to speak to me. Inside this mini-world, you can find a place to charge up your crystal. If you forget to do that, then, well, you are fucking screwed. Otherwise, the second part plays identically to the first, just with tougher puzzles.
Now you will take the turtle's place, Dr. Wei. Listen carefully. Facing in the direction indicated by the mountain, the turtle now leaves the lake and immediately finds himself at a crossroads.
Technically, the sequel once again features pre-rendered backgrounds that seamlessly transition between gameplay and cutscenes. The graphics have been improved a bit. This can also be since the resolution has been upgraded from 480p to 600p. And despite the age of the game, the locations still look great. At least that's how I felt on my 24-inch monitor. Of course, this depends on the size of your monitor in the end. Unfortunately, a few bugs and crashes made it back here. The crashes happened quite often and caused me a lot of frustration when I had to replay chapters like the jungle for the umpteenth time. It all made me so paranoid that I saved every minute, more on that later. There's another issue with the text. When you go to one of your items, the name is displayed in black, which is not good for readability. But there is a permanent fix for both by setting the compatibility mode to Windows 98. The text is now white and the crashes are also gone. Great. Speaking of saving, there's something you should know if you want to play this game. You are only allowed to create 99 save files. When you save, a new file is automatically created. Nothing is overwritten here. As soon as you reach the 99 mark, that's it. If you try to save now, the game does not inform you that it reached its limit. So you assume that everything is working correctly, which would be a fatal mistake. I lost a good hour of progress as a result and my blood pressure went sky high. It's possible to delete older saves in the save game folder to make some room, but seriously, have you ever played a game where this was even necessary in the first place? But to end on a positive note, Friends of the Night, the music is gorgeous. If you like the soundtrack from the first part, then you will love the sequel too. Once again, the pieces are composed by Pierre Estève, and you can immediately recognize his handwriting. I have no complaints, except that it is difficult to choose a favorite song. But if I have to name one, it would be Rhea's Garden, which plays when you reunite with the Queen of Atlantis. Absolute goosebump moment.
It came from somewhere in the stars. It was infinitely wiser, more intelligent than our ancestors. But they had something which it lacked. A physical body, sensations, joy and pain, the cycle of birth and death.
And this concludes our recurring adventure to Atlantis. Overall, the first part was much more fun for me in terms of story and logic. Although the individual stories in the second one are quite entertaining, the main story is left behind and only really picked up again towards the end. Nevertheless, this game offers a great atmosphere with a fantastic soundtrack, much like its predecessor. So if you like the first Atlantis, here you get more of the same. And with that, thank you for watching and see you next time.
away we go then.